All right, let's get it.
Let's get it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Chris Alaimo.
And I'm Ben Gassaway. Together, we are the Amateur Investors.
This podcast is our open source journal of everything we learn about investing and wealth management.
We're here to explore the key concepts, market dynamics, and investing strategies that will assist you on the path toward financial independence and financial literacy. Our mission is to build us up from amateurs to experts.
All suggestions are our own, and we recommend that you do your own research before taking any investment advice. See you in this week's episode. We hope you enjoy it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Amateur Investors. For this episode, it's really going to be a Chris-heavy episode. I am sort of the novice on this front, but today we're going to be diving into what it takes to run and build your own Bitcoin node. So Chris and I have been talking about buying Bitcoin for a while now. We've talked about the monetary, really, I guess, I don't want to say, essentially the monetary protocol of Bitcoin, some of its features and why we think it's a really sound money, especially when considering in the monetary backdrop of the Federal Reserve money printing and the IMF, just really the global debasement to the bottom. So this recent dip that we've seen in Bitcoin, it recently going below 30K, we really see this as a buying opportunity. People always talk about going to the store and looking for clearance sales. Well, this is one. And I think markets tend to be one of, I guess, a mental paradox where when things go on sale, you don't want to buy, but it's only when things are expensive that you buy. So flip that around. I think, Chris, this is your tweet, and maybe we mentioned on the show, you make money in the green, but wealth is built in the red. So if you believe in Bitcoin and you understand the protocol, you read the white paper, you read, the Bitcoin standard, Bitcoin hasn't changed. And nothing about really the white paper talks about the price. The price is really just what has the open market decided that Bitcoin is worth in this point in time. And we are so early in the adoption cycle. So this is a buying opportunity. With that said, the next step in, your journey of being a Bitcoin buyer and user would be to get a cold wallet to transfer your Bitcoin off of whatever exchange you're using. And then the next would be running a node. So Chris, I'd love for you to kind of kick us off. You just built your first and only node. You might have more, I don't know.
No, I only have one right now.
For now, what really is a Bitcoin node and why is that important?
Yeah, definitely. Ben, thanks for referencing the tweet. I definitely shared it on our account, and I think either I tweeted it out or whatever. But yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Right now, I think we're seeing a lot of the price going down, and people are like always wondering, like, is it long liquidations? Like, why is it going down? Is there something wrong with the protocol? What's happening? I know I've heard this, and I need to do my own research on it, but I heard that normally hash rate is actually one of the closest metrics in terms of price. Right now, we've kind of seen a historic drop in hash rate because China just banned Bitcoin once again. I think this is going to be a reoccurring theme for forever. China allows it, doesn't allow it. China allows it, China doesn't allow it. So right now, 90% of the miners in China, or at least I don't want to call them Chinese miners. It's more like people in China that are it's not so much a nationality issue, it's just location. So China is banning it in their country. So anyone that is in their country is basically turning off the miners. Right now, we've seen a 90% of miners in China have basically turned off their Bitcoin miners out of fear of the Chinese government coming after them and trying to seize their miners or their assets or jail them themselves. So right now, we're just seeing as they're turning off their miners, they're going to be moving their miners elsewhere because they're business people just like anyone else, that they would try and put them in a new country and or location that has favorable regulations and or renewable cheap electricity. Those are basically the two things that they're looking for. If that's, in the outskirts of China, if that's in America, if that's in Africa, if that's in Europe, that remains to be seen. But a lot of them are turning off their miners and looking to relocate right now. They're kind of in the business of shutting down and moving elsewhere. I know there's something saying one of the guys that runs one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations in China. He's kind of one of the Bitcoin whales. Aside, they can kind of tell his wallet by the number of Bitcoins that he mines and it goes to his wallet. He just purchased another 1,500 Bitcoins himself because of on-chain metrics. The autonomy or the privacy of Bitcoin, they're assuming that it's him. But he actually came out and said, I bought a bunch of Bitcoin and I'm planning to buy even more. So if the guy whose business depends on Bitcoin just saw Bitcoin crash by 55% and he's doubling down or tripling down his conviction, I think this is a good signal for basically Bitcoin moving from weak hands to strong hands, him being one of the strong hands. So that's just something to note, something to put out there. But yeah, basically kind of your journey, or most people, is you kind of buy Bitcoin, you kind of start learning about it. Then Ben kind of mentioned transferring it over to a cold wallet or a hot wallet. We recommend obviously cold wallets. And then your final step is kind of running a Bitcoin node. So what's the importance of running a Bitcoin node? So in simple terms, basically you're helping verify and strengthen the Bitcoin network. That kind of seems very grandiose and a grand gesture, basically. But basically what that means is you're participating as you're verifying the transactions as the miners are mining Bitcoin and basically transacting from me paying Ben paying his parents, so on and so forth. Just instead of using Bitcoin, we could just say the same thing with cash. Instead of using Visa or MasterCard to verify all those transactions, we're using like our nodes to verify that those transactions are taking place.
Okay, there's a point there. Actually, I think miners and nodes tend to be conflated in conversation. For someone who's maybe new to the space, or even someone like me, I find myself getting mixed up a little bit with the terminology. How would you differentiate, in simple terms, a miner versus a node, and what is sort of the power of one versus the other?
Yeah, great question. And that's actually, people do get confused with it very often. I know personally, I was also confused in the beginning. Like my parents even said, like, you're running a node, like how many Bitcoin are you generating? I'm like, oh, none, unfortunately, right now.
Zero.
Zero. Yeah, exactly. Aside from the stuff I'm buying with my salary, none. But yeah, so a miner is basically a piece of equipment. The common ones right now are ASIC miners. But back in the day, people used to use computers, or it was called GPU mining when they were hooking up graphics cards. But a miner is basically a computer that's dedicated, or I guess they can mine any cryptocurrency, but we're just talking about Bitcoin here. An ASIC miner is specifically designed for mining Bitcoin in the sense that it's trying to solve a complex algorithm every 10 minutes. And in solving it right now, the reward rate is 6.25 Bitcoins on top of whatever transactions they process. So if all of a sudden I'm mining Bitcoin with my ASIC miner, I solve the equation first before anyone else in the world, I get rewarded some of that Bitcoin. And on top of that, if Ben and I are transacting, my parents are transacting, all these different people are transacting in that 10-minute block, I'm also getting
on
the
average.
On average, you're getting the fees associated with all of those transactions. So if someone puts a very high fee and I take it in that block, I would get that higher fee versus if not many people are transacting at the time that I'm mining the block. Unfortunate for me, I don't get that much of a reward, or the fees are much lower by comparison. So you get 6.25 plus the transaction fees. Running a node is different than miners completely. So miners are expelling energy to try and solve a problem first in order to be rewarded with Bitcoin for doing so. A node is just for verifying. So I'm looking to say that there's no bad actors of miners just saying like, oh yeah, like I solved the block, and then another miner saying I solved the block, and another miner saying I solved the block. So they're all saying we deserve the Bitcoin reward and transaction fees. The nodes, or everyone else, is verifying, no, this miner actually found the transaction, and they're the ones that are going to be rewarded. The other two people are lying, or either they claim that they were, but they are not actually part of the longest chain. So nodes are for verifying it. But I guess, do you want me to dig into more of the detail of what you can do with miners or nodes?
No, I think, well, of course, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper. That's the episode of the day. But I think that was a good description. The miners really are, I guess, like the worker bees. They're just trying to add entries into the ledger, which is really just an account that everyone has a copy of. And the nodes are kind of like the judge and jury 24/7, making sure that in the right thing so that everyone can propagate the same copy of the Bitcoin ledger in real time. Which is a pretty amazing thing, that you have a trustless system that's wholly incentivized to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's globally
cool.
too. When you think about it, like it's not by any nation state or any country, city, or whatever governing body.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about your process in what it was like to set set up a node? Like how complicated is it? Are there resources available that help with the setup? Did you find yourself kind of stumbling, or were you able to kind of jump right in? I'd love to know, maybe just like walk us through the process
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so even though I'm a chemical engineer by degree, I wouldn't say I'm the most technical person. It was kind of me and my buddy setting it up, and we did it kind of with trial and error. I think the best resources are BTC Sessions. I think I've mentioned him in a couple other podcasts. He's got a YouTube series talking about starting to build a node, running a node, what it is, what it means, and he has very good basic for beginners. There's a bunch of other YouTube tutorials as well. And then also I use Get Umbrel. So Get Umbrel is, think of the node as like the hardware, where Umbrel is like the operating system. So I chose Umbrel, but there's a bunch of other companies that allow you to interact with your node. So basically your node is, I guess the best way to describe it is basically like a little motherboard with a bunch of, like, you connect a hard drive, like an SSD, a solid state drive, or a mechanical hard drive to, and then you plug in an internet cable. And basically what you're doing is the internet is, you're downloading the whole blockchain. So you have all the transactions since Bitcoin started in 2009, all the way to present day, if your node's running correctly. And then as transactions are coming through, it's constantly refreshing and it's checking like, oh, another block was found. We're adding that to the blockchain. And that's kind of the best way to do it. And once you have it all downloaded, that's kind of where you can expand and grow from there.
Could you describe maybe what the interface looks like? Talking about running a node, I feel like I almost picture, because I'm not doing it yet, I almost picture sort of like a DOS printer and like a black and green screen with digits flying through. What does the interface look like? Is it pretty comprehensive? Like, do you connect your laptop to your node? How would you kind of describe that process?
Yeah, so you can connect your phone or your computer. So
Oh,
I'm
really?
using my
Okay.
desktop right now. I will actually log on with my node.
And there's no like privacy concerns with you.
I'm wondering that right now. No, I think we're good. Well, I'm gonna share my screen.
We'll send it.
If I get doxxed,
We'll reimburse you.
So right now, this is kind of looking at Umbrel right now.
This is so pretty.
So this is Umbrel. Right now I have a balance of 30,000 sats, or equivalent of about $9.72. Obviously that's varying with the price going down. Right now I had a Lightning channel open. Me and my buddy were testing it. We opened it up with this 30,000 sats and then we closed it because we wanted a bigger liquidity pool. So basically what that means is we're going to put more sats into it at first instead of constantly adding to it if we run out. Basically that's like, we're running a Lightning channel, and we talked about one of our previous episodes. So right now there's 30,000 in my Bitcoin wallet. There's none in my Lightning wallet. This is showing the blockchain right now. So it's 100% synchronized. So I'm up to date. And this is currently what block we're on and how many transactions happened. So you look, it's on average 10 minutes where it finds a block. 7 minutes ago, we found block 6888524. 32 minutes, we found the previous block. And then about an hour ago, we found the block before that. But sometimes, it'll be like you find 3 blocks in a 5-minute span. And then other times you find blocks in over an hour span. So it really depends.
All right. So this is my first time literally ever seeing a wallet interface, and it's really, really sexy how this is set up. Actually, it's very comprehensive. You got a 4-block quadrant on the home screen. Like, that's awesome. One thing I am wondering, and maybe I should know this, but can the node serve as a wallet itself, or are you adding? So I see like you have a Bitcoin wallet, a Lightning wallet. Is the node itself serving as the wallet, or is it like an application built onto the node itself? How would you describe that?
No, it can serve as a
that.
wallet itself. It's a hot wallet because you're connected to the internet. So
Right.
I don't know. I am unaware if there's a way of doing a cold wallet with a node. I don't think so, because you're constantly plugged into the internet because you're trying to see what the next block is. And as we were talking here, we just saw another block get found. So
I love that.
I don't know if you saw the little animation,
yeah,
but the
that was
block
sweet.
little spun around and a new block has been found.
I was actually going to ask, like, is it pretty real time to update? And then
yeah. Oh yeah. No,
we watched it happen.
I mean, if I were to go upstairs and show you we'll post a picture of it later on. But there will be the picture of the node, and it's all lit up and it looks really cool. So yeah, it's running right now.
I love it. Thank you for sharing this, Chris. I think
no
this
problem.
is actually really helpful for folks that are interested in doing this. And Maybe we jump into that topic really quick. Chris, I really want to take you up on your offer to help me build a node and maybe give a handoff really quick to our audience about what's coming down the pipeline with what you want to do.
Yeah, so Ben and I are looking to expand our business. We have not turned a profit yet. We're getting close.
We're getting close.
We're getting very close. But so yeah, I guess one of the big things we've been talking about announcement for a couple weeks now, but we are going to be building nodes for people, and we obviously would be selling our service. We'd be building you a node, shipping it to you. I'd be building also instructions on what it looks like, all the components of it, and we're going to try this in with the Bitcoin ethos, and we're going to try and keep this fully open and open source basically. So even if I challenge anyone, if they want to start building nodes for people, I think it would only help the community. It helps strengthen Bitcoin. We would love to try and make money and turn a profit with it. But yeah, no, we would definitely be selling nodes. I'll be selling you instructions, how we built it together, what the components look like, how all the components were put together, how the node was built, what the solid state looks like. Like I said, I use Get Umbral, but there's a couple other softwares. I'm drawing a blank right now on the top of my head, but there's a couple other softwares that you can use to help you run your node and use an operating system.
Probably Bitcoin
Yes,
Core, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an important thing. And really, Chris, this was your, I guess, brainchild was to come up to do this. And I think this is the one step where I think people are inherently intimidated by it. I think cold wallets are like a step below running a node just because there's like not really, you really can, it's a plug and play at the end of the day, depending on which wallet you choose. But I think this is an area that we want to explore and fill in a niche because the nodes as it stand, at least what I've heard is it can be challenging to build, and it might be complicated, it might be intimidating, but having someone do sort of the labor on constructing the hardware, the wallet, or of the node, and then the user themselves, they get their own address when they plug it in. We're totally blind to whatever that interface looks like for them. At the end of the day, it's essentially just electrical engineering that we'd be doing. So, yeah. Chris, I think it's a really good opportunity for folks to have a painless way in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And this is one of the most important things to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. I kind of look at it like routers and modems. Like I have no real clue what routers and modems do. Like I get the general concept. It like helps you hook up your internet, cable, TV, whatever it may be. But like I have one, I plug stuff in and it works. So if the easier we can make for us building the node and then you plugging in and follow the instructions of either our instructions or Get Umbral's instructions, I just think that's, bringing mass adoption to Bitcoin, and it helps make it easier. So yeah, I think that's a great part of it.
Definitely. And depending on how many folks are interested in this, like I think we could probably open up like a consultation service as well for folks who are running their own node, maybe running into problems. Just so you don't have to go through like the customer help desk of some random company. You can always just reach out to us. We're pretty open. And we're always happy to help our audience with anything that they're going through. So that announcement will be coming and it'll be live on our website very soon. We have another announcement coming out.
Got another two announcements coming
out. Two announcements coming out almost immediately, pretty soon. So we're excited about that. This is actually a pretty big development next couple of weeks for us. So yeah. I'm excited to see what you do, Chris. You're going to have to teach me how to build everything.
Yeah, well, so Ben, you're going to be my first customer. So I guess that'll be work well.
Pay yourself first. That's awesome. Very cool.
So, yeah, no, but Ben and I are working as a team. We're really excited for it. Like I said, we got a couple other things in the pipeline that's really cool. So
awesome. So maybe talk me through what the greatest challenge was in setting up your node. Were there any hiccups? I think that's important to know for folks, that if you ran into a roadblock, maybe just the biggest challenges that you faced.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not the most technical savvy person. That's interesting that I'm building nodes for people, but I guess, taking my mistakes, learning from them and building them. I will say when you're building the node, so it's basically a small little motherboard. If you've ever seen like a motherboard, it's the green little chip inside your computer, or I guess big if it's a laptop or a desktop. It's very little. It's called a Raspberry Pi is the device that we're using. On that, when you're building it, you have to put heat sinks, and that's in order to keep the heat off of the electrical components and prevent things from overheating, because you're going to be running this 24/7 because and don't get scared. It doesn't take up that much electricity. It's like charging a cell phone constantly. It is like the equivalent of the electricity that it takes up. So if you're leaving your computer plugged into the wall constantly, if you're leaving your cell phone plugged in, if you're leaving anything like that, it's about the equivalent electricity. My parents weren't freaking out over, a spike in electricity bill or anything. So yeah, it's
this
just
isn't like a miner. This is
yeah,
different than
exactly.
mining,
It's not
for
like a
sure.
miner. It's not super energy intensive or anything. So I guess putting the heat sinks on the Raspberry Pi were tough because they're tiny little heat sinks on a tiny little motherboard. So basically I was like taking tweezers to try and get them on properly. I put one on backwards, so I had to peel it off, put it back on the other way. But aside from that, I mean, it's not too bad putting it together.
Is there any soldering involved, or is it really
No,
sort of
no,
like
no
more?
soldering. No,
Okay,
it's
okay,
just
that's good to know.
it's like you take off a peel of the heat sinks and it like sticks right onto the components.
Got it. Okay, very cool. Maybe what was something that surprised you after your full node was running? Because I hear about nodes all the time, but even me today, just I was surprised about the interface. I didn't realize how modern it would look. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a very modern technology, but because it's sort of independent things and independent, like sort of like financial management, like Bitcoin is, where it's like totally just a pseudonymous system where it's like, anonymous developer, decentralized. I expected it to not, I don't know, and shame on me for expecting it just to like not be. It looks like a brilliant tech. It looks like a very modern sort of Silicon Valley application. Maybe I would love to hear like what surprised you most about running your
yeah.
node.
So Get Umbrel, they're the company that does it. I keep mentioning them. They made it very clean and easy and very good user interface. I guess the
Yeah,
thing
it's
that
awesome.
kind of surprised me when running my full node is, so I built it, it's running, and then I'm like, okay, cool. Now what? And really what the next step is learning how to use your node. And you're like, oh, Chris, you're verifying the chain. Like it's just, you're updating it. But I guess as I learned more about Bitcoin, you learn about the different things that you can do with it. So you can open up a Lightning channel. So Ben and I talked in a previous episode. If you haven't heard it, you definitely recommend listening to that. So I can open up a channel with Ben, like a Lightning channel. If he has a node and I have a node, we can open up a channel. Let's just say we put up equal liquidity. He puts up 100K sats. I put up 100K sats. And then he wants to pay my brother, I think was the example we used. He pays me $5 worth of sats. And then I pay my brother $5 worth of sats. So it's like kind of like an abacus, like, $5 worth of sats came over for me, or $5.01. And then I send the $5 over to my brother, but I keep the 1 cent. And so it's a way that you can make liquidity instead of Ben giving Venmo the money to basically use to invest or whatever. Like, we opened up a Lightning channel. The next thing is watching transactions. So if I were to send Ben money, I can open up my node, look up the transaction that I sent because I have the address of the wallet that I'm sending it to. So if Ben sends me his address, I can plug in that address into one of the apps on Get Umbrel, and I can watch as in real time as it gets mined into a block. So I literally can watch, like, you need confirmations or 6+ confirmations in order for it to basically be 99.999% verified. I can watch as, okay, it's waiting. All of a sudden it's entered into the mining pool and it gets mined. That's really cool. I sent my buddy 10,000 sats just to see, and we watched it in real time on my computer as we sent from my hot wallet to his hot wallet. So that was really cool. Another thing is Sphinx Chat. So I don't know if you guys have heard Sphinx Chat. Very new. It's an application that runs on Get Umbrel as well. Basically, think of WhatsApp or Signal, the messaging apps, or even like SMS. But instead of using Apple or Facebook or Signal, the company, I think they're a Google company. I forget. But whatever it
Yeah, I'm
is,
not sure.
instead of using those companies that they can basically find your data, you're using a permissionless messaging system. So the way that it works is, we could even use it with smaller sats. I put up 10,000 100 sats. Ben puts up 100 sats, and let's just say my friend Matt puts up 100 sats. We open up a channel, and we imagine a group chat of the three of us. And if I want to send a message to them, it would take 1 sat. So 1 sat goes to Ben, 1 sat goes to Matt. In doing so, those sats carry the messages of what I said. So I'm like, hey guys, you want to meet at the bar at this time? It sends out a message of 1 sat each, and then their responses send the sats back. So the sats are never really, like, if you're thinking of it less as currency and more of like thermodynamic or energy moving around, we're basically just pushing the same sats around. If I wanted to spam them with messages, I could run out of messages, and like, then Ben and Matt could laugh at me and say, Chris can't respond unless he puts more sats up into the channel, or they respond back, and then I eventually have liquidity and I can message back. But I mean, in the odds that I'm not sending 100 messages at once, normally a group chat's pretty, uniform in how many people you're sending messages to and the frequency of the chat, or at least for me. And then I guess the last thing is, aside from watching your transactions, you could watch the blocks being mined. So I was showing right there when we saw as the blockchain is being updated, and we're watching in real time as blocks are being mined. So those are just some of the nuances. apps are being built for it all the time. I mean, that's part of why we're saying Bitcoin are so early. I really see Sphinx chat is just kind of the beginning. I think there's going to be a social media element to it instead of like what happened to Parler, instead of Amazon or Google or Facebook or whatever or Twitter trying to basically thwart competition. If a Bitcoin social media platform where you have to put up money or sats or satoshis onto the platform, and then that's the way you message or comment or like people or like their posts, it prevents scammers for one. No other company or subsidiary or government can stop it, and it's just free and not free and permission. It's not free, but it's permissionless and it's final in transaction. So it's just something that's very interesting. And like I said, it's not built now, but I can fully see that being built in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I do find that fascinating. I was thinking through that about like what are some maybe the implications of like why a Sphinx would be preferred over something else. But I think it goes into like social scarcity where it thwarts bad actors who can spam. I feel like it's sort of like wasn't there a protocol for like email that was almost like a predecessor to Bitcoin to a degree where it cost money to like
yes, I think
spam.
I think was it Hashcash or was it E
I don't think it was Hashcash.
E-Cash?
We'll look at it.
I know what you're talking about, but yeah, we'll definitely include that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, the social scarcity, it's something I've thought about quite a bit actually, is like what would Instagram look like if you only had a handful of per day? Like you probably wouldn't like a Kardashian post, like I hope not. But it makes you kind of think about, I think it would reshape the way that people interact with social media. It's similar to like just why consumer behavior is the way it is with fiat money printing. Our money is just constantly being stolen from us in the form of decreasing buying power. So until we have a true scarcity that's, the Bitcoin standard, people are just going to want to buy and grow all the time with no consequence.
And I wonder about that too. I know we've talked about digital scarcity before, and like if you only have 10 likes a day, or you were limiting how much you can do. I wonder if that almost breaks like the gambling addictionness or like the addiction part of social media. Where imagine like if I only had $10 and if I liked Ben's post, I liked my brother's post, and I like that, and like I spent $3 on something, I'm like, oh crap, like it's basically almost like gambling, but you're not like winning the reward of like getting money back, if that makes sense. I don't know. I wonder if that breaks it, or if you're like to do comments or to do stuff, it takes money or energy or, to actually transact and do those things. I don't know. Like I said, we don't know.
But I think the Sphinx thing is pretty fascinating. I would be curious to see what that looks like and how that evolves. I think the other big thing that I'm interested in is, have you looked at, I know this is a big thing that's talked about on Twitter and what have you, like on-chain analytics. Have you ever exported anything from your node? And if you haven't, do you know if it's like fairly easy to do so? Like to export like data from like the blockchain?
Yes. So personally, no. Okay. But I've heard about it, and we've seen people talking about on-chain metrics and people trying to figure out, who's who. So, we always talk about the privacy of Bitcoin. I will say Bitcoin is not the most private cryptocurrency, and that's the only time I will say that. I know there's a lot of things being built to make it more private, but Bitcoin's kind of the perfect culmination of like its privacy, but like final transaction, and it's got the network effect. I know with Taproot activation, I don't know if we ever talked about that. That's coming in November. The miners are signaling that they're going to do it. The node, and that's the last thing. You can also, with your node, you can vote on changes to Bitcoin. So since Bitcoin's open source, it's kind of like someone, let's just say me, I'd be like, hey guys, I've got changes to Bitcoin. And either people have to vote yes or no, whether they want that to happen. So all the nodes are voting yes or no. Obviously they're incentives if a lot of your net worth is tied up in Bitcoin. So you wouldn't want to do something that would hamper that or make it worse. But all the nodes were basically saying they wanted more privacy. They wanted more I always mess this up. Anonymity. Anonymity. See an enemy. No.
See an enemy. That's what I was going to say.
Anonymity. Anonymity.
Whatever. They want to be anonymous.
They want to be anonymous. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. So Taproot's going to do that by basically taking transactions, if multiple transactions are occurring, it's shrink that down into one signature, a Schnorr signature. So basically it's going to prevent, like, if me, Ben, Matt, and a few other people had a multi-sig where Bitcoin was tied up, they would see all of us, like they would see the transaction of money being sent to all of us. Instead, now it's going to be just one signature, and then it's going to send to separate addresses. So it gets harder to track, basically. But yeah, I mean, I guess where was I going? Seeing the on-chain metrics,
Yeah.
Taproot. So you can vote on what changes you want to occur, which is very important because it's like one node, one vote. It's important to do.
Tell me about what that voting process looks like. I don't know. I mean, was your node set up?
I had not built the node before Taproot was was sent out to the node, so I haven't done it yet. Also, you do have to download. So like, there's separate apps. Like exactly, Sphinx Chat's a separate app. The Lightning Channel's a separate app. Like each one of the components or apps is like basically like you have a phone, but I have Facebook on here. You have Snapchat. You have Twitter. Like you have different applications that do different things. It's the same way with your node. Like you have different apps that can do and view different things of the Bitcoin blockchain.
Do you think I know we're going more into a more abstract thing now, but where do you think nodes are heading? So I guess I'll focus on one item first. For the application side, do you think there's room down the road for consolidation in the applications on the node? Or do you think it'll continue to be these very, very specific purposes like Lightning Channel? Or how like Microsoft Teams has a chat, video conferencing, calendar, like an integrated platform? Could you ever see there being a consolidated application? Or do you think that defeats the purpose of sort of like the decentralized nature of things?
Yeah, I think there will be applications that you can do more or less on, but it's interesting because Bitcoin's open source. There's less, I don't want to say like monetary incentive, but like the reason Microsoft does video conferencing and databasing and all these different things, it's a way for them to extract more money from their customers or offer more features. Where like if you're in the Bitcoin, like you're looking at your Lightning channel and then you're also viewing the transactions, that's just someone built a free application. Does that make sense? Because it's open source. So I guess a developer can say, I can look at my Lightning channels, I can look at my I can look at the on-chain metrics, I can look at everything's being mined, but it would just be kind of an application that you go to that has all of it. But kind of Get Umbrel kind of shows that already. So I guess yes, but right now there's separate apps. There's even multiple Lightning Channel apps that you can use. Like there's 4 different ones that you can use. The one that I use is called Lightning Labs. No, not Lightning Labs. I think it's Lightning Labs. I forget what it is. But even when you look at the node, you can they're all the Lightning Channel. It's just they look different. It's like if you open up Twitter versus Instagram, they look different. They're both social media. They both get the kind of same thing done, but they just look different in the way they're presented and the way that they use them.
Got it. On the node front itself, do you think that there is, at this point, room for innovation in terms of maybe just convenience in running your own node? Because it's a business opportunity for us to be able to construct your own node and send it out to customers. But for someone who wants to participate and maybe hasn't watched our show yet, do you think there's down the road that nodes become less hardware intensive or more compact, or do you think building it yourself is sort of the beauty of it? Like, what is your opinion on node development down the road?
Yeah, so I think it's like anything. I think they're going to get smaller, faster, and more compact. Right now, the Raspberry Pi 4 has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I won't get too technical on it, but basically that's the short-term memory of the device, meaning that when you're running applications on your phone, it's using RAM. When you're like taking a picture and you're leaving your phone for a long time, that's long-term storage. But like if you're looking at Twitter and you're refreshing it, that's using your RAM. It's the device's RAM. So when you're running a lot of applications, especially the Lightning Network, or if you're running the on-chain metrics and stuff like that, that's more energy intensive. If Sphinx Chat, energy intensive. If we were to do a social media aspect of it, or basically like we were talking about, like a Twitter, but like with putting up sats, that's going to require more RAM. So basically the nodes are going to get bigger and then they're going to get smaller. It's like anything, like computers used to be the size of a house, then they came down to the size of a desktop, then they came down to the size of a laptop, and now laptops today are way better than the computers that the size of the houses in the 80s. So I think yes and no is the answer, basically.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this, because some of the commentary around nodes that I've heard is like there's tens of thousands of nodes, and there's like way more than tens of thousands, at least
Yeah. So
50,000 people on Earth.
yeah.
So I
So
can imagine there's a lot more participation to be had in the future.
yeah, so
Um,
there's a variance between public nodes and private nodes.
right.
So a public node would be like a node that a business is running. So for example, Ledger, the company that does the hardware wallets or the cold wallets, they're running a node to verify transactions as things are coming in and out, not of they don't own the devices, but just to verify the transactions of the blockchain. And that's considered a public node. If Get Umbral runs a node, like all these different companies run a node, but you want to run your own node to verify for yourself that like a company, like all the companies are not colluding and lying to us, that a government's not lying to you, that it's like don't trust, verify. That's kind of sewn into the Bitcoin ethos, and that's very much what running your own node is.
I think it's awesome. It really is. And I think it goes even down to sort of the design side of Bitcoin itself, where Satoshi, programmatically set the block height to be 1 megabyte. And that is such a small data pack when you compare where we've come from nowadays. So
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's a beauty to that where almost anyone can participate in that. I don't even know how much data is on my smartphone that or in terms of memory, like a video game is like 100 gigabytes, like an Xbox One game. So the
Yeah.
fact that a block height with what we just saw, like Chris, like 7,000 transactions, that could be like millions of dollars transacted, and that's 1 megabyte of block height. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is right now the blockchain, I forget if we broke 400 gigs. I don't think we did. We're at like 397. So 397 gigabytes is the total Bitcoin blockchain of every transaction that's occurred since
Ever.
when Bitcoin started January 3rd, 2009 to today. And it's still getting bigger and it's updating. But Satoshi saw the importance and the original cypherpunks that there was a block war. I know we've talked about this before. I still want to read the block size war. It talks about 2017 and 2018 when Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV kind of saying we should increase from 1 megabyte to 1 gigabyte, or 100 megabytes. But in doing so, that makes running at your own node really cost prohibitive, because then you basically need to start running a server, or you need to start buying a ton of data. And the only companies that really have the money and capital to do that are the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters, like all the big tech companies. And for what it's worth, whether you trust them or you don't, like that, like being reliant on them is just as bad as being reliant on a government. So running your own node, I see as a very important step to becoming a Bitcoiner. I'd almost call it not the completion of your journey. I think this is kind of like when you open up your mind and it gets better from there, basically. I think I'll add the one last thing is, so, I mean, Ben and I are going to be offering the service to build your own nodes, but, I fully recommend or I prefer or even recommend if you build your own. And I know that's counterintuitive because I'm basically telling you to not use Ben and I's service to pay us money, which would greatly help us. But in doing so, you actually learn and you appreciate a lot more. But we're offering the service for the people that don't feel comfortable, that aren't as tech savvy, and that it's like buying a built like laptop that it's all good to go versus building your own desktop. They still run the same function. Yeah, can you have a desktop that's a lot faster? Can you swap out parts a lot easier? Do you understand a little bit better? Of course. But if you have a laptop, like which would be us building it for you, versus if you build your own desktop, which would be like building your own node, they run the same function. And I still think regardless of which option you or your friends or whatever decide to elect, I think it's a very important part of being part of the Bitcoin community, the Bitcoin ethos, and just kind of furthering your education about buying Bitcoin and learning about it.
And the full service build is really just like the first generation of what we're doing. Like this is the first time that we're doing anything sort of like paid. So I think the easiest thing for us for right now is to fully build a node and then ship it. But I think down the road, we can create more of like catered services where it's like, okay, we can buy the parts and then ship them to you, or we can guide you about what parts to do, how to build it, maybe like more of a consultation. But I think first step is building it. But down the road, I think we'll probably create some more service offerings and options down the road.
Definitely. So we're really excited. Like I said, 2 more big announcements coming. Ben, you got anything else?
No, I'm super excited for all the announcements that are coming out. And I think we've done a pretty good job. And I mean, in my opinion, walking through sort of almost like a a chronology of becoming a Bitcoiner, to be quite honest. We've
Yeah.
learned about Bitcoin in real time, and this is our first episode on the nodes, and we talked through Lightning. This wasn't even planned, but I think we walked through sort of like the life cycle of Bitcoiners. And I think maybe an exciting thing to do would be to check in on me after we've got my node set up, and maybe we do a screen share where I send you some sats over Lightning or something.
That'd be cool. We open up a channel and then we start spam each other sats back and forth. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. That's all I got. Chris, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for teaching me a little about nodes. I'm excited to have my first one built.
Yeah, dude, I'm really excited as well. Yeah, so that's all we got. You know, you can look, we'll be posting stuff on our website, all our social media platforms. You know, like, comment, subscribe. We're growing our following slow and steady, but it's been a joy, and we really appreciate everyone that supports us in any way, whether you listen to our podcast week in and week out, watch us on YouTube, comment on the stuff that we post on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or what call it. But thanks, guys, so much. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Catch you later.